Hey guys, Bill here. Just wanted to give you guys a little heads up. This is going to be the fourth and final of the original pilot episodes we did for Geek Addicts back when it was still in its early development phases. Gonna just post this now. Once again, audio is kind of rough, so just a heads up there. But anyways, guys, on to the episode. Hey everybody, welcome to Geek Addicts.
So, I never really played any Final Fantasy games growing up, and I always intended to play them. I just never got around to it, mostly because a lot of the highly regarded ones were on lesser systems, specifically VII, which is what we're talking about now. Mm-hmm. But for Christmas this year, because for reasons that we'll probably go into on a different episode, we specifically asked for things that wouldn't take up a whole lot of room. So we got a lot of video games for Christmas, me, my wife, and my stepson. And one of the games I got for Christmas was a 2-pack for the Switch. It was Final Fantasy VII, the original version, and a remastered version of 8. It's
actually, fun fact, it's actually the PC version.
Is it? For 7?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I wouldn't have known. But yeah, Really? Because it even says, I guess it says Part 1 and Part 2. It doesn't say disc.
Yeah, well, because they had to kind of change it around for that.
That makes sense.
It's based off the Steam port, which is in itself based off of the original PC version from back in the 90s. But the original PC version was actually a dumpster fire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they screwed up the soundtrack. They didn't have the actual PS1 MIDIs. They had PC MIDIs, which did not sound the same at all.
Oh, okay.
And it had performance issues, but it was all fixed with the updated Steam port and the version that's now on consoles.
Okay. Well, anyways, that's the version I played.
It's the best
so
one to
pretty
play.
much right after this passing Christmas, it's March now. I pretty much started playing 7 immediately because I wanted to give it a try, and that's the one that people always talk about. So,
well, I guess to give a little backstory behind 7 in general, Final Fantasy VII is, as the title would suggest, the 7th game in the ever popular and not Final Fantasy series.
Not counting spin-offs.
Well, at the main line.
There's the tactics games and stuff.
Yeah. Well, those actually came after, but...
Oh, okay.
But, so, 7 is pretty famous because there's a lot of things behind 7. It was the first one not to be released on a Nintendo system, because so we go back to the early days of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy, the reason it's called Final Fantasy was actually because it was going to be Squaresoft's final game, because they were going out of business. Because all their games they'd released had been either flops or unsuccessful.
Okay.
So they decided to put everything into this one final game, and it was called Final Fantasy. It was going to be the swan song before they broke up and went off into different wherever they could end up. And it was supposed to be the final game of its creator, Hironobu Sakaguchi, the creator of the Final Fantasy series.
That didn't work out, did it?
So Final Fantasy ended up being a massive success. It saved the company, which was at the time known as Squaresoft, or just Square. The soft part was mostly.
I'm guessing it's Square Enix now.
Well, Square Enix is the result of the merger of Square and Enix.
Okay.
Enix was the company that did Dragon Quest.
Oh, okay.
And Star Ocean.
That makes sense.
And a few others. So anyways, going back to that. So obviously, massive success. Immediately get Final Fantasy 2 and 3. But here's the thing. Final Fantasy 1 did not come out in America until around the point where 3 was already coming out in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, the Super Nintendo is already down the corner. So they decided, rather than spend all the money to port over to very late NES games to America, which no one would probably buy, and also RPGs they were very niche at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And 7 was only a modest success in America. It wasn't a mega success. I mean, not 7. The original Final Fantasy was only a modest success. It wasn't super big by any means.
Right.
So instead, they decided just to release Final Fantasy IV, the first one on the Super Nintendo, which was coming out. Although for its American release, they renamed it 2, not to confuse us.
Yeah, okay.
It gets funnier from here. So 4 or 2 initially comes out, and horrible translation, but great game.
Okay.
So then Square hires this guy named Ted Woosley to become a translator, and he became one of the first real localizers.
Mm-hmm.
And had some pretty classic localization. So they begin working on Final Fantasy V. Initially, it's going to come out over here as Final Fantasy III. But V had a job system and was a bit more complex, and Square decided that that's too hard for us Americans because we're stupid.
They tended to do that a lot with Japanese products.
They scrapped 5 and they instead began working on 6, which would come over here as 3.
Okay.
So we've got, in America at this point, we've only got Final Fantasy 1, 4, and 6 renamed 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
We also got Mystic Quest, which was a spin-off, which was designed to be a beginner-level RPG in the series, which was intended as a starting point for fans, like, to get into the series.
Okay.
But they went overboard because Final Fantasy Mystic Quest is like RPG for dummies.
Okay.
The game holds your hand the entire way. It's like the most like basic RPG you'll ever play. Like it's so easy. It's not even funny.
All right.
Like it's no challenge at all. But they did that, and unfortunately, RPGs just weren't really catching on overseas yet. Like they were super niche. Like people loved like 6, they loved 4, but they were a small amount of people. I mean, there was also Chrono Trigger, which was another Square property, which is a critically acclaimed, but no one played it because RPG. And then there was one final title Squaresoft released before we get into 7 proper, which was actually the beginning of the point where people were finally starting to notice, and that was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars.
I've heard a lot about it. I've never played it.
So it was essentially Squaresoft makes a Mario RPG.
All right.
And it is a phenomenal game. It is not as good as some people say it is. I honestly say the Mario and Luigi and Paper Mario series are better, but nostalgia is a powerful thing. So now we're getting to the end of Super Nintendo. We're moving on to the next generation 5, and we're getting the N64, which is Nintendo's next system, and Sony is joining the market with the PlayStation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Squaresoft was a strong Nintendo supporter. Like, they'd only released everything for Nintendo systems by this point. They see the specs for the N64, and they see the cartridges.
Yeah.
And that immediately causes alarms for Square, because what they want to do with the next-gen RPG is not going to work on that. They don't have the space. Because 7 actually, believe it or not, started development on the Super Nintendo.
Really?
Yeah, very early phases, like, obviously didn't get far, because it moved.
Oh, I'd imagine.
I mean, to be fair, though, this has happened with, like, because 4 started on the original Nintendo at one point, before they moved it over. But it just obviously early phases.
Yeah.
And originally 7 was supposed to, like, at one point, 7 was going to be like a kind of like a detective, like, noir kind of storyline, which later evolved into the game Parasite Eve. But, so yeah, eventually Nintendo is firm on the cartridges, like, they don't want to do discs.
Right.
And Square does make a tech demo for, it wasn't a tech demo for 7, it was just a tech demo in general that used Final Fantasy VI characters running on N64 hardware. But it was so demanding just for those character models on the hardware that they were never going to be able to put their vision on an N64. So Square infamously jumped ship to the PlayStation and ditched Nintendo, which was one of the start of Nintendo's fall for a time in the gaming industry.
Yeah.
So 7 jumps over to the PlayStation. And 7 is like the first game in 3D, has, even though the majority of the game is just pre-rendered backgrounds, it was the first game in 3D, so 3D world, cinematic camera angles, 3D battle screens.
Yeah.
Big, like, expansive world.
Yeah.
CGI cutscenes, like stuff like that. So they bring it over here, but then they decide it's getting confusing with the 2 different names. We're just going to call it 7. See what happens.
Right.
So it comes over here as 7. Ironically, it was the first Final Fantasy to come out in Europe, so Europe just started with 7.
Lucky them.
Yeah. And 7 ends up being the breakthrough game that finally, like, RPGs are into the mainstream now. Like, everyone was RPG nuts. Like, all of a sudden, like, every RPG coming out is like a hit. And it was like the start of that era.
Yeah.
But 7's where it kind of began. And 7, part of the problem with 7 too is reason why, like you said, 7 was the one that you knew about. 7 developed a very strong, like, fan base to the point where I put it in the same category as Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Great games, not the greatest games in the world.
Right.
Like, neither one is the
greatest.
greatest.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the shit out of 7, but it's certainly, I mean, obviously, it's not in my top 3.
No, I wouldn't even say it's in my top 3 Final Fantasies.
Really?
I'd play 6, 9.
How many of them have you played?
To completion, 1 through 10.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're pretty well versed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've played them all, like other than 11 because I missed 11.
Yeah.
And
That was the
the first
one.
That was the first
Or the
MMO.
MMO one rather.
And you can still play 11. It's on Steam, but I'm not paying to play a dead MMO.
Yeah. It's
And I played the free trial of 14. I liked it, but I can't justify the money or time.
Right.
But anyway, so getting back to 7. So phenomenal game, finally breaks through RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess where we can start is like, what was your initial thoughts like playing the game?
My initial thoughts. It wasn't what I expected. Because I knew of it, I knew it existed, and I knew it was immensely popular, even in the current age. You know, there's still like so many people talking about it.
To the point where a lot of new people who get into it actually end up disliking it because of how overhyped it is.
I can see that, but if you stick with it, you understand why.
Exactly, yeah.
Because, I mean, my first thought was, oh, this is more like a cyberpunk thing, because you start off in Midgar.
Yeah, this
And
was
it's a very Midgar. Midgar is a very cyberpunk-ish area.
cyberpunk mixed with like steampunk. Well, steampunk was more like
Well, steampunk, yeah, that's what I
yeah.
meant.
Steampunk like modern because there is a lot of modern concepts in 7, but 7 does still have fantasy elements. 6 was the beginning of moving away from the fantasy because 6 was like steampunkish.
Yeah.
But also like it was also very fantasy because there was like still castles and like kingdoms and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But 7 was where it started to go full out modern.
Yeah. And that was definitely like my first thought, because you're on the train and you hop off and you're fighting robots and stuff, and that was
one of my favorite
interesting
transitions in like gaming, where it's like the camera pans into Midgar to the train station. The train comes in, because it's all a pre-rendered like CGI cutscene.
Yeah.
But the cloud comes out and you're all of a sudden playing in that like scene where it panned into.
Yeah.
Which was a cool effect for the time, even though all the characters look like Popeye.
Yeah, no kidding.
The giant arms, like just graphically dated game.
It's crazy.
It was definitely the first on the PlayStation.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked for what it was.
It's fine for what it is. I mean, nowadays you play it.
And when you're in the battle, you know, the models look a lot better.
The models are decent in battle. They're a little rough around the edges still, like compared to not really spoiler, but compared to like 8 and 9 especially.
Yeah,
which are phenomenal looking games for the PlayStation. But yeah, so it's a little rough, but the transitions are cool, and the soundtrack, like that opening Midgar scene,
yeah,
like where you're going in on the train, like that is so epic. Even though it's MIDIs, and they hadn't fully gone with the actual like CD quality audio yet. It's so epic sounding because
just leave it.
because the composer for the Final Fantasy series, like he was the sole composer from 1 through 9, Nobuo Uematsu. One of my he is probably my top favorite composer of all time. His soundtracks are phenomenal.
See, I don't really keep track of composers for video games and anime and stuff.
I keep track of the ones that I know.
The only one I really know is the composer for Dragon Ball, Kikuchi.
Yes.
Because obviously, I mean, needless to say.
Yeah. Because I mean, I'm a huge music fan in general, so when when I get like super into a game and dedicated to them, I look deep into that stuff, and like Final Fantasy's music is so great. There's a reason Nobuo Uematsu is like considered like one of the greatest composers of all time. Like everything he does is like gold. Especially the PlayStation era is like his magnum opus in my opinion. 7, 8, and 9 are phenomenal.
Well, I loved the soundtrack in 7.
7's soundtrack is amazing.
Just that like regular. I don't even know if you would call it like the general theme.
So the main
or like the overworld theme, or
so the overall it's kind of the general aesthetic. It's also retroactively become Cloud's theme.
Yeah.
But yeah, the overworld theme, like the do 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 do.
Yeah.
Do do that
That's the kind of song I could just throw on in the background and just have it going.
I can listen to the 7 soundtrack at any point. Like I love the opening bombing raid mission.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the Final Fantasy prelude, which is like the do 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 do.
Yeah, when you start up the game,
that's
before you actually hit continue or whatever.
That's in every Final Fantasy at one point or another.
Okay.
There's also the Final Fantasy like overture, which you hear a lot. I can't do that one by memory.
Well, I'm sure it has some sort of like remnants from all the previous games.
Oh yeah.
Hidden throughout. Because even going from 7 to 8, like, there's a lot of musical cues and stuff that I'm recognizing from 7.
7, believe it or not, was actually the first one that actually changed up a lot of them.
I believe that.
Because 7's battle
theme... It definitely seems like they were trying to, like, really go for a lot of new stuff with 7.
Well, 7's battle theme is the first one in the series that did not start with the traditional series battle music, because all the battle themes before that started with a bass line that goes like do 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 do.
Okay.
7 was the first one not to do that because 7 goes right into those who fight, which is the
yeah.
and then there's the boss theme, which is called Those Who Fight Further.
Okay.
Which is like it's like the super rockin' theme.
Yeah, I like that.
All the boss themes are great. Like one of my favorite tracks. Like I guess we're gonna just talk about the music for a bit here. One of my favorite tracks of all time in the series is called "Under the Rotting Pizza."
Under the Rotting Pizza.
That's what it's called. It's the when you're in the Midgar slums, like the super bass, like the do 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 do, like kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's when you're just kind of going around the slums, not in like any of the town areas.
Okay.
You hear that song play. There's also Oppressed People. That's like this theme that you hear at the wall market. They're like the do 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 do.
Okay.
You probably remember it if you heard it.
Yeah.
I love that theme. Like there's just some great. Aerith's theme is great. Tifa's theme is great.
Yeah.
Barrett's theme's great. All the character themes are great because every character has a theme in this one.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, going back into the story, I think the first
initial playthroughs you're going to be very confused.
Oh, I certainly was, especially when Cloud was first going to plant the bomb at the Mako reactor.
Yeah, Cloud's a dick in the
and
first half of the game.
Oh yeah, super. And I mean, although that being said, I've started playing 8, so Cloud seems relatively tame compared to Squall.
Squall's a different level of dick.
And just because I know we're supposed to be talking about 7, but just because Squall has, even when they don't have a prompt, he's just naturally an asshole. I've just purposefully gone for all the asshole responses. Because he's already an asshole, so I might as well just go fucking.
So 8 doesn't have relationship value, so don't worry.
All right, cool.
You can be a dick all you want, and it comes to
But
see, my favorite is always either just the ellipses because that's like Squall's dialogue, or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
I love the whatever. But anyways, back to 7. So Cloud, the bombing.
Yeah, when he was planning the bomb and he first had that little like inner voice type of thing. And I guess they kind of reveal later that that's supposed to be Zack, but it's really his memory of Zack.
It's also partially the Genova cells in his body which are messing with him.
That makes sense. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot about 7 and Advent Children, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Into that. Also Crisis Core, which I can talk about some later.
Yeah.
You haven't played Crisis Core, but
No, I have not, but I do have a PSP, and I'll have to borrow that from you at some point. I do want to get through some other of my. I have so many fucking JRPGs to get through right now, so it's kind of ridiculous. I have like fucking, I don't even know, like 5 or 6 Dragon Quest games, and at least that many Final Fantasy games. Plus, I have to get through Attack of the Saiyans. I have a chip for Kakarot for my Switch. I did beat the main story on PlayStation, but I never played through all the DLCs.
Yep.
But I want to play it again anyway, just because it was an enjoyable game. Yeah, I have a bunch of stuff I have to get through, so I'm gonna have to hold off on borrowing stuff for now.
Right. But anyways, getting back to 7, it's actually pretty funny because it's like you start the game up and like were you?
Oh hey Nick.
Hello.
What's
Do
up?
you have pizza?
No. No.
This is an odd
Give me
transition.
pizza.
Did I interrupt the recording?
Yeah, we're talking
That's
about
fine.
Final Fantasy.
Don't worry about it. But anyways, so were you expecting when you first played that you're suddenly playing as an eco-terrorist?
No, I was not. That was certainly not what I thought. I feel like I should have, because I watched a little bit of Mission Abridged, the Team 4-Star thing that they did. I only watched the first couple episodes, but I ended up stopping before I got too far into it. I think partially because I always planned on playing it, but also partially because I didn't know what was going on, and I wanted to play it first.
But
before I really get into it.
It's actually kind of funny in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII that you get later on. There's actually you find out that the Avalanche was a different group before Barrett took it over.
Really?
And they were just straight up terrorists. Like they weren't like the the misguided eco terrorists that you play as.
A well-intentioned group of
But so the introduction of 7 is interesting because you do the bombing raid, and then you get like Barrett has everyone disperse, and then you jump off the train and you're just wandering around Midgar for a bit there, and it's like you run into a flower girl at the time she'll be important later, but and you get the option of like, do you want to buy a flower, and you can either buy the flower or not. You said you didn't buy the flower, right?
I don't remember, honestly.
So buying the flower, because this game, fun fact, this game has a very rudimentary relationship value system where there is date that you can go on later in the game, and basically you can end up with one of 3 girls or Barrett. It's all based off of like choices you make throughout the game that change your relationship values. So getting that flower gives you relationship values for certain characters at some points, or you can just not take it at all and get none.
Right.
But so you encounter Aerith, and then you run.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you. I think I did buy it. I think I gave it to Marlene.
Oh, so you got points for it with Barrett.
Yeah, but I ended up with Aerith anyway.
Yeah.
But
well, Aerith has the highest inherent relationship values in general.
yeah,
So you actually have to go out of your way to lower hers, because I know how to get the Tifa route like down pat. Because Tifa's, there's no, I mean, it's hard to say because the canon's weird, but I think Tifa's the canonical.
that's definitely the way Advent Children painted it.
Well, they were childhood friends, and you also got to remember Cloud's not exactly who Cloud is.
Well, they were and they weren't, and that kind
Yeah.
of gets into it later.
It gets
with the story, but
Cloud both is and isn't who he says he is at the beginning of the game.
he kind of is and isn't who Tifa says he is at the beginning of the game.
Oh yeah, because Tifa.
Because Tifa acts like they were good buddies back in the
No.
day, and the way that they portray it later on is like, no, that is not the case.
Yeah. But
They just knew of each other.
yeah. But it goes into it where like you go through the bombing raid, and then you end up back at Tifa's bar, which is the 7th heaven, which is also the hideout for Avalanche.
Right.
And then of course you can run into Tifa, and you get a bit of backstory, which isn't actually it both is and isn't backstory at the same time.
It isn't accurate.
And then you go through that, and you get onto the next mission. And at first you're like, oh, is this entire game going to be based around Midgar and be all about being a terrorist?
I mean, that's kind of how the remake went, for the time being, at least, until they
Yeah.
release more of it.
Well,
I
true.
haven't played the remake yet, but I heard that it's basically just Midgar, so...
It is, and it changes a lot to the point where it's being kind of considered its own alternate continuity.
Which I'm totally cool with. I have no
True.
problem with that.
Because, anyways, you go through that, and then eventually the ending of this mission, because this time it's Cloud, Tifa, and Barrett. There's also the rest of Avalanche. Do you want to give your thoughts on them? Because
They were pretty short-lived.
Yeah, they are.
Honestly, most of my thoughts from them come from the mission abridged, so...
yeah, we
Honestly, this is one part, because they give Jesse this, like, really, like, fucked up voice. It's like...
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Have you seen Mission Abridged?
I've seen parts of it. It's
It's
been a while.
just like-
Well,
They
Jesse's
do this
so,
whole joke with her, and it's
Jesse
fucking
is such
hilarious.
in the original game. Jesse is such a forgotten character, because she has.
I
Like,
mean, they all kind of don't really have a character.
Well,
They all die before
Yeah.
before anything comes of them, so...
You remember Biggs and Wedge just because of the joke, because it's a running gag in Final Fantasies where
Yeah, because I bumped into them in 8.
yeah, they're not as memorable.
They're not
in
the same
8.
character,
No,
obviously, but...
that's a running gag, because Final Fantasies have all their running things. Like there's always a character named Sid. There's always a Biggs and Wedge. Well, starting with 6, there's always been a Biggs and Wedge, which is a Star Wars reference.
That makes sense.
And they're usually one-note characters that don't matter.
Right.
And there's chocobos, airships, all the staples.
Which I think I'm about to get the airship in 8. When are you supposed to get that?
Yeah, I'm not going to spoil, but you're not.
No? Okay. I'm still in the prison, so...
Yeah, you got a ways to go.
Yeah, well...
The 8's interesting, but back to 7 now. So you go through that, and then Cloud ends up, as parties go, you get split up, and Cloud ends up in the church.
Yeah.
You meet Aerith.
Yeah, you like fall from like this gigantic height, and you end up landing in the church.
He's got Mako in his blood. He'll be fine.
Yeah, whatever.
But he's a soldier. You know.
Yeah,
an
yeah.
Ex-soldier.
Soldier first class.
I renamed him in one playthrough ex-soldier, so he was just ex-soldier the entire game.
That was actually one of my favorite running jokes in Mission Abridged. Was like whenever they'd meet a party member, and they would bring up like the name prompt.
Yeah.
And it have all of these joke names. Like when you first start up, and they ask what Cloud's name is, it loads up and it says Blonde Zach.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorites is you rename Aerith. God damn it.
God damn it.
So it's like, God damn it, Cloud. reading the stuff.
Yeah.
But that's a good one. Or naming any character I say, because then they just turn into Foghorn Leghorn the entire game.
It's awesome.
But I love doing shit like that. But anyway, so moving on, you get into this thing where all of a sudden these guys in suits show up, and then they're like, Aerith's like, hey, can you do something about them so we can get out of here? And then there's this mission where you have to like drop barrels down to like help Aerith through these combat situations.
Yeah.
Or in my case, just make her fight everyone and fuck them up to lower her relationship values.
Fair enough.
Hey, and that's more experience, so.
Yeah.
But eventually you run it. So one of the most, it's weird because 7's a huge game, but honestly the most interesting part of the game is the first like couple hours.
Yeah.
In Midgar. So you get around till down in the slums of Midgar, because Midgar's a city with like another city below it.
Yeah.
And you're down in the slums, and then you find out you're basically journeying around with Aerith for a little bit, and you get at this playground. And all of a sudden, you see Tifa go by on like a wagon, and you're like, "What the hell's going on there?"
Yeah.
So, and this is after, of course, like you tried to bring Aerith back to her mother's house, and her mother like, "Can you please leave? I don't want her to get hurt again." And Cloud's like, "Fine." Besides,
Is that how it happened in the game? Again, I've watched Mission Abridged a couple times at this point after I
she
finished the
basically
game.
tells him, "Will you please leave?"
And like,
"Will you please leave in the middle of the night?" And you have to do this little like segment where you have to slowly walk out of the room and not wake Aerith up. And I kept fucking it up and waking her up, and it keeps resetting.
oh jeez.
But eventually you get out, and then you go immediately to the next screen, and Aerith's right there because it's like, oh, of course.
Yeah. Fucking
But
weird.
You run into Tifa on a wagon
Stalker.
thing, and you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on with Tifa. So you end up in this the wall market, which is like a little slum, and then you get one of the most famous points of the entire game, the cross-dressing mini game.
Yep.
Yeah. And there's multiple ways you can do this, because you can theoretically, the Don, who is the person you need to get the info from, he can pick one of the three.
Yeah, because he already has Tifa, and then you dress up as a girl, and you go in with Aerith,
Now,
and then he has to choose between the three of you.
Now, the choice is dependent on how far you go with the cross-dressing minigame. So there's 3 required items you need. There's the wig, actually there's only 2, the wig and the dress.
Mm-hmm.
The wig itself is you get by doing like a squatting minigame.
Oh, right. Yeah.
With
yeah.
the incredibly wouldn't fly nowadays characters.
Yep.
And then
Squatacles.
yeah. And then there's the dress where you have to like pick a certain dress.
Yeah.
From this guy from a tailor who lost his drive to make clothes. Mm-hmm. But then he immediately, when he finds out I'm making a clothes for a dude, sure, this immediately gets my...
Yeah, right.
There's also the guy in the bathroom at that place who like won't get out.
Yep.
Because he's having a bad time. But then you find out you can also like, so you can need just those 2, and if you just pick those 2, he's most likely going to pick Tifa.
Right.
Now you can also go...
Which I think is what happened in my playthrough.
Yeah, because if you don't get the best wig and you don't pick the dress and you don't get the silk dress, you're going to get lower values. And
Is there a scenario where Aerith gets picked, or is that
Yes.
just not... Oh, okay.
So there's also multiple other items you can get. Like there's a tiara you can get by doing a side quest for the owner of the materia store.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's a...
Did the guy's like laying on the counter?
yeah. There's a vending machine.
He's a drug dealer on the Mission Abridged.
Yeah. There's a...
Sorry to keep coming back to that, but I found it hilarious.
There's a... So I think we should just explain Midgar, and then we'll kind of break off after that. But so there's a vending machine in the inn, and you're basically required to sleep one night at the inn, and then they'll let you use the vending machine. You want to pick the most expensive item, then you'll get the best tiara.
Okay.
There's also a restaurant you can go to and order food. If you make the thing if you say that the food was all right, you'll get a coupon. You take the coupon to the...
The hell's so funny of that?
The thing you said about the tiara.
No, I'm laughing at you. It's in a monologue that I'm having fun with. Sorry.
Okay.
But,
there was-
continue.
Totally unrelated to what you guys talked about.
All right.
Yeah,
But,
I know what it is then.
Anyways,
you
you get
don't.
this coupon to go to a pharmacy, and you can pick one of 3 items, which are perfumes. You want to pick the one that's like, I think it's called like the digestive. It's the best perfume.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to rest my
And then you go... So then the most infamous part of this is the Honeybee Inn, which you didn't go into the inn, right?
No, I did not.
Because you didn't get the membership card, right?
I didn't know how to do it. I thought that because I've heard about the Honeybee Inn.
The Honeybee Inn is one of the most infamous parts of the entire game. So the way you get into the Honeybee Inn is there's one guy, you know the screen where the inn is?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically this game's version of the Playboy Mansion, but only they're bees instead of bunnies.
Okay.
But,
fun.
yeah, it's weird. But so there's one guy in the screen right before where he's very indecisive. He's like, I think I'm going to go. I'm not sure. If you talk to him after starting the quest, he'll be like, I can't do it. Here, take this. And he gives you the membership card to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So then you go in, you get to pick one of 2 rooms. You can either pick the group room or the singles room. Now,
Okay.
the singles room...
Is that like the back room?
No. Well, they're all just individual, like, room. So you can...
Private shows.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because you can peek through the doors because there's 2 rooms you can pick and then there's 2 other doors. And you can peek through the doors, and one of them is the president of Shinra, who you meet later on.
Oh, really?
Not Rufus, his dad.
Yeah, Rufus' dad,
He's in there, and he's like dressed as a king, and it's like the
Oh
most
my
some
god.
weird role
I
play
wish I had
going on.
done that.
And then there's another one.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to do that when I get to the remake.
I'm not sure if it's in the remake.
it would be a crime if it wasn't.
Well, the cross-dressing's in there, but I'm not sure if they include... Well, I believe...
I know the Honeybee Inn is in the game.
It
I
is.
know that for a fact, because I listen to the Team 4-Star Talkcast Pod show, and they specifically discuss that
I
in
haven't
their Final
finished
Fantasy
this.
remake.
I haven't finished the 7 remake because I don't have time. I haven't had time to play it. I haven't got there yet, so I'm not sure.
That's fair. I mean, you're jumping around to so many things. If anybody listening hasn't come to this conclusion yet, Bill is extremely knowledgeable about video games, and he has played a lot of different ones.
Nerd.
So
We're all nerds.
true, but
One way or another.
the video game is his particular focus, so he has a lot to say about a lot of things.
But
So-
there's also another room you can peep in, and it just plays Kate, character you meet later, Kashi, or Kate Sith, as some people like to call him.
Kate Sith?
His name's actually Kashi. It's like
Is
Celtic.
it?
It's like Celtic or whatever.
Oh well.
But
Well, a lot of things have used that name going forward.
it's
SAO uses that when they eventually go to a game of where you play as fairies, and there's a race of fairies called Kate Sith.
Yeah, it's apparently actually pronounced Kashi because it's like a myth thing or something like that.
Oh,
But
okay.
you peep in one room, and it's an elderly couple.
Nice.
But it's playing. It's funny because they're just sitting on the couch not doing anything.
There.
But it plays Kashi's theme, like the do 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's then in the background just chilling there. And when you learn more about Kashi, it's a
Kate
little,
Sith or Rufus, or not Rufus. Reeve.
it's not it's Reeve's behind. Spoiler alert warning. Reeve is actually who's controlling Kashi, who's it's a robotic cat riding a giant Moogle.
Yeah.
But you hit the robot's in the room just chilling there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the context. It's such a random one scene.
Well, I mean, apparently he can look through it and stuff, so he probably just set up the robot in there so he could fucking get some free shows or something. I don't know.
I don't know. We don't learn much about Reeve.
Except that he apparently does not share Shinra's
No, he's the
values.
He's the token good, corrupt executive.
Yeah.
But so yeah, but then what makes the Honeybee an infamous? You can actually go into the changing room where the bees are, and you can actually get one of them to do your makeup because that gives points for the cross-dressing thing.
Okay.
But then here's where the infamous part. So there's two rooms. There's the singles room and the group room.
I skipped all this, so I have no idea.
So the singles room is weird because it's like you just go in and it's just a bed, and then there's just a random Cloud apparition in the corner, and then Cloud has a freaking psychotic nightmare like he does at different times in the game.
Oh,
One
yeah,
of those
yeah.
moments, and then you get woken up and there's just this buff muscle dude in a speedo just punching down on him, waking him up, and it's like what? And then if you talk to the maid before she leaves, she gives you some panties.
Okay.
So then
Used or otherwise?
I was gonna say that.
it doesn't specify.
Were they vending machine panties?
I don't know.
In Japan.
They get points. That's all that matters for the cross-dressing thing. But the other room is the most infamous part of this thing because it's would not fly nowadays, and I haven't played the remake, but I'm not sure if it's in there. I doubt it is. It's a room with a giant bathtub, and then the next thing you know, it's all full of those muscle-bound men in speedos.
Okay.
And you all take a bath together.
This is a
And
porn,
Cloud makes.
isn't it?
And
I
Cloud,
can see this being. I can see it
porn?
being
it's
in there.
very.
Not in a porn.
Well, no. Here's the thing. Cloud gets in the tub with them, and he starts making comments about "Stop, it hurts."
Oh God.
It's like, what the fuck's
Wow.
happening?
All right. Well, maybe they'll change
no,
the dialogue.
No, but here's
a
the
bit.
thing: the screen pans up, so all you see is their heads.
Oh,
Yeah,
bad porn.
it's like what the. I pick it every time just because it's funny.
Jesus.
It's way more interesting than the other one. The other one's just weird.
All right.
But you get the bikini briefs for doing that one, which also gives you points, but not as many as the other one. And then you leave there and you forget that happened.
Yeah.
And then you do the proper cross-dressing.
I certainly
thing.
didn't.
If you got all the points, Cloud gets picked. If you only got some of the points, Aerith can get picked.
Okay.
Honestly, it's actually better off unless you really just want to get the laughs of Cloud beating out Tifa and Aerith. The dude.
Yep.
Which is funny in hindsight. It's actually been more beneficial to get one of either Tifa or Aerith picked because you get experience for being in that side room and fighting all the guys.
That's fair.
Because you don't get the experience of that.
Right.
But then eventually you go and you confront Don Cornerio or whatever his name is.
Something like. I remember in Machina Birds they kept calling him Don Cornholio.
I mean, he's basically just a really bad, weird not accurate personification of Hugh Hefner in a sense.
Yeah.
He ends up, they confront him, and he gives in the secrets that they wanted to know. Because the whole reason Tifa went there was to get inside information for Avalanche.
Yeah, it was because Shinra was up to sketchy shit. And then they ended up finding out that Shinra was going to drop the Sector 7 saucer onto
Sector 7 slums, where the where Seventh Heaven is.
They were going to drop it, and in an effort to destroy Avalanche, which was severe overkill.
Yeah.
Severely overkill.
Well, so President Shinra is literally just a psychopath.
Yeah, well.
But after that, you go through the train graveyard, and you eventually get to the pillar, which they're going to destroy, where Barrett's actually launching a full-out defense assault on it.
Right.
And then this is basically where you... it's all for nothing. You get to the top of the pillar, and you beat the boss, and then it gets destroyed, obviously, anyways. And they blame it on Avalanche, of course.
Of course.
And then you have to now get back up to the plate, because they've kidnapped Aerith.
Mm-hmm.
Because, of course, they have. Now it's...
And did they kidnap Marlene or no?
It's implied.
No, that happened later. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened later.
But, because Barrett thinks Marlene's dead at this point, because he doesn't know...
right, because he doesn't know that she's at Aerith's mom's house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we get to the top of the... You eventually journey your way back up to the slums, because you have to climb up the destroyed remains of the plate, which are now present in the wall market.
Mm-hmm. And
then you get up to the actual thing, and you want to go directly confront Shinra HQ.
Mm.
And you get, two options. You can either... Well, I think this is after you've... before that, you go and you find Marlene safe at Aerith's house.
Right.
This is basically, we're getting to endgame of the Midgar section. You climb to the top of the thing, and then you can go... You get two choices. You can either directly go into Shinra HQ and you fight a bunch of encounters, or if you don't feel like fighting, you can take the back entrance and climb the stairs, where you get some funny dialogue.
Yeah, you've told me about that.
You get some pretty funny dialogue. Some of it's wouldn't fly nowadays, but you eventually get through the Shinra. You get through the Shinra HQ building. There's a whole bunch of different floors, each with their own kind of puzzles to get through. And you eventually get to the...
Which was honestly really annoying for me.
Yeah.
Going through all the different floors of Shinra was really frustrating for me personally.
On repeat playthroughs, it's not as bad because you know what you're doing. But
that's fair.
There's a lot of puzzle solving that you have to figure out there.
Yeah.
And then eventually we get to the top, where we get to one of the most nightmare fuel sections of the game, where you discover Genova.
Yeah.
You're looking into that thing, and it's this fucking weird, humanoid looking alien thing in a tube, and it has no head.
Yep.
And that actually, as a kid, that scared the shit out of me.
Did it?
Not gonna lie, as a young child.
Yeah.
But I agree with Barrett's response of, where the fuck's its head?
Yeah.
And eventually you go through there and you confront Professor Hojo, who is he's basically doing an experiment to get Red 13, I think he's like a lion, fire lion dog thing.
If I was gonna try and put a label on it, I'd say Sabretooth.
Something like that.
Something along those lines.
He's one of the best characters in the game, because he's a party member, believe it or not.
I didn't even honestly use him that much. I used him a very little bit in the beginning, but...
His backstory, moving forward a little, that you find later when you find his... where he's... the village he's from.
Yeah.
His backstory is one of the best in the game. That whole
thing
with his dad. One of my favorite themes. Red 13's theme is amazing, too. This is another great one.
I honestly didn't really take into account whose theme was whose. I just kind of enjoyed the music all around as it was playing.
It's more noticeable on repeat playthroughs. Aerith's theme is iconic just because it's literally plays at a certain boss fight later on. But yeah. So Hojo's literally trying to breed Red 13 with Aerith at one point,
which is
really weird.
Yeah.
But you end up fighting bosses and you rescue them, but then you get thrown in jail because you go to confront President Shinra.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get this really weird moment where you're just chilling in the cell, and it's they stuck Cloud and Tifa in one cell, Barrett and Red 13 in another, and then Aerith's just
by herself
for some reason. And eventually you get some dialogue there, and then the game cuts, and then all of a sudden the doors open and the hallway's just full of blood.
Yep.
And it's what the fuck happened here?
And when I was playing through this, my first thought was that Cloud had done it. I thought that it was because he kept hearing that voice in his head or whatever.
That's actually an interesting take.
And I thought it was going to be Cloud who had done it.
No, but then you find out it was at least you think it's Sephiroth.
Mm-hmm.
But you go down and you see the capsule where Genova was kept is burst open, and that's where all the blood's coming from.
Huh.
So this is kind of a spoiler for...
I didn't even notice that.
Okay. This is actually... So actually, you might not actually have caught this. Sephiroth literally doesn't... Every time Sephiroth appears in the game, it is not actually Sephiroth. That point right there, Jenova came basically back to life and took the form of Sephiroth. And she burst through the thing.
Okay.
So the Sephiroth... That's why every time you run into Sephiroth, he leaves behind a hunk of Jenova.
Okay.
That's why you face Jenova so many times throughout the game.
So what happened to... So, alright, jumping ahead a little bit.
The real Sephiroth is the one in the crystal that you find later.
So did he not die when Cloud...
When Cloud... So, okay, we're going way ahead, but the backstory behind Cloud is he faced off against Sephiroth at in the reactor at Nibelheim.
Like, way ahead of time,
Yeah.
before everything in Midgar.
Yeah, this is like way late. This is like way later in the game, but
It was like him and Tifa's big backstory.
Yes, their true backstory. So Cloud basically dealt the final blow to Sephiroth, and he fell down into the planet's core through the reactor.
Okay.
That's where he ended up in that crystal.
Okay, alright.
But he had Jenova, because he rips Genova's head off.
Mm-hmm.
He has Genova's head. That's how I think that's how it's supposed to be. He's controlling Jenova,
Mm-hmm.
because he's also like has Genova's cells in him, because
Right.
he was a experiment baby basically.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, going back to Midgar, so the Genova's escaped and she's on a rampage, and she actually kills President Shinra.
Right.
And then that's when Rufus shows up, and then you basically fight Rufus, and then it's the escape scene with the amazing bike scene.
Yes.
The bike chase minigame.
And that was honestly like... The mini games like that were part of the reason why I found 7 so engaging.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just your typical JRPG where you're just, okay, you're in another turn-based fight, you do the fight, okay, I walk 3 steps, I'm in another fight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But 7 mixed it up like that. It had things like that. It had things like oh, you gotta get the outfit so you can dress up like a girl, like we were talking about earlier.
Side quests and stuff.
Or there's like the golden saucer stuff, you know,
Or
the chocobo races, which...
Fort Condor.
Yeah,
Did
stuff like that.
Did you actually do all the Fort Condor fights?
I did one of them.
Well, you have to do 2. You do the first one, like when you first run into Fort Condor, and then you do the one protecting the Condor.
I might have done both of them. I'm not 100%
Well, you're
sure.
required to do both.
Oh, well, then, if I'm required,
Yeah.
obviously I did it.
So you can... Fort Condor is actually one of the most crazy mini games throughout the thing, because it happens at random points throughout the game where there's like just a one of those battles where it's like a RTS all of a sudden randomly for no reason.
Yeah.
Where you have to you can go there at random points in the game, but it's always at really weird times where you have to go way out of your way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, you probably didn't go out of those, but yeah, there's only 2 required times. But anyways, yeah, so you do the bike mini game and then you escape Midgar, and then the game truly begins.
Yeah, that's when the game really opens up and you can really explore.
Yeah, and then we immediately get to the next town over, and we get the backstory of all backstory. You know, where you get Cloud and the backstory behind Cloud, well, the quote-unquote backstory of, like...
Was that one? I thought that was one after we took the boat. I thought that was when he really, like, opened up to everybody and told what he believes to be his backstory.
Well, it's when you're in that town and you're staying at the inn and everyone's, like, gathered around to tell the story.
Yeah. I just thought that happened later.
It might... Well, actually, I think the Chocobo thing might happen first, because you have to cross the Zolom. Did you fight the Zolom, or?
I tried to.
Okay. So the reason why
I ended up killing it later on when it was like super underleveled for me.
Yeah. So the reason why you want to fight the Zolom is, so did you use the materia skill, the skill materia?
The enemy skill one?
Yeah.
I didn't get it until later. I might have gotten it early, but I just started using it until later.
Okay, so the reason why you want to fight the Midgar Zolom is because it has the move Beta, which is a move that you can learn, and it's a very good early game.
Okay.
But anyways, so continuing on, this is kind of, we go through that, and then you get to this like one town. I forget the name of it. I forgot the name of the town, but it's where we get the first like real backstory drop, where we get the whole backstory of what happened in Nibelheim and how Sephiroth became Sephiroth.
Right.
Even though it's not exactly the true events.
Okay.
And so we go through that, and then there's a point where the entire thing is like a playable kind of cutscene backstory where you go around Nibelheim. Yeah. You encounter like Sephiroth, Tifa and stuff. Mm-hmm. Cloud's mom. You actually get to play as Sephiroth very briefly.
Yeah.
He's OP, overpowered. You can look at his like you can't take any material off him, but he has like this ridiculously overpowered equipment and stuff.
Yeah, he's got like 9,999 health and
he's
shit.
literally untouchable. Like he can't even take damage.
There's no chance for any of that.
Which is hilarious when you're fighting him versus Cloud, and then Cloud just gets one-shotted all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you go through that, and then there's also the when you go visit Tifa's room, and Tifa's like, "Did you visit my room, Cloud?"
Yeah, right?
And,
that was weird.
You can steal her panties.
You can?
Yeah.
You can do a panty raid?
Yeah, and she'll be like, she'll literally jump into the thing and be like, "Cloud," and you can be like, "Never mind, just kidding." Because doing that actually lowers her relationship value, so don't do that.
Jesus.
But you can go through that, and then we get to the whole backstory of what happened and how Sephiroth went nuts, because he was originally a decent guy, at least it seemed. But then he goes nuts and then becomes the murderer that he was.
Yeah.
And the game really...
Sephiroth!
Yeah. The game really kind of blows up after that. It's like all sorts of different side things. You visit all these different towns, keep gathering characters. Eventually you get back to Nibelheim, and it's like, hey, the town that burned down is suddenly back.
Yeah.
And it's like...
Which is really weird.
Been rebuilt, and all these people are just actors all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Pretending nothing happened.
Yeah, that was really odd. So, let's not go way too into the story.
Well, yeah,
we've given the good background so far.
So I guess
so I mean, anybody who's interested at this point will play it. And anybody who's played it already knows all this stuff.
So I guess a good one for you to ask is, what was your thoughts on, spoiler warning, Aerith's death?
I'd like to say that it affected me in a big way, but unfortunately, I already knew it was coming.
Yep, that's the big problem with this game. Most people knew it was coming.
And despite the fact that I knew it was coming, because I had heard about it already, I still used her on my party.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know when it was going to happen.
The worst is when you go out of your way to get her level 4 limit break.
I didn't.
Okay, because her level 4 limit break's amazing, but you only get it for like 5 minutes.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is like, I needed a healer, and she just seemed like the most logical person.
She is the white mage.
She was just the most logical person to use, because her limit break literally healed everybody. Mm-hmm. So there was no reason not to, except obviously because I knew I was going to lose her later, but it ended up not mattering that much, because I ended up just transferring that materia over to whomever. A lot of the time I just used it with Cloud, but I have a question for you. What is your go-to party?
Cloud, Tifa, and it alternates between either Red 13, Barret, or sometimes Cid. Mm-hmm. Depends on my playthrough at the time, but it's always Cloud and Tifa, because I love Tifa's limit break.
Yeah. I think the way that I ended up playing worked out for me. The fact that I did use Aerith at the beginning, because when she was gone, I didn't really know who I was going to use after that. I ended up, because I started off kind of using Barret, kind of using Red 13 a little bit, but I ended up ultimately going with Cid.
Cid's an interesting character, because I like Cid, but at the same time he's kind of a jerk when you really break him down, because he's a wife beater.
Yeah.
Which is uncomfortable in hindsight. He gets better via character.
He's at least verbally abusive. I don't think it ever blatantly says that he's a wife beater.
It's kind of implied at times.
Maybe. I don't know.
But
I didn't pick up on it if that's the case, but
I'm not even sure they're actually married now that I think about it. But
well, I think she's just his assistant. I don't even think they're actually together.
Oh, they are.
Oh, they are? Oh, okay. I didn't get that.
They are in the future.
Didn't get that feeling from them.
I think they were a thing before, and then obviously the backstory revealed that something happened, and they kind of just indebted to each other.
That makes sense.
See, when I think Cid, I always think drink your damn tea.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I love
me
Cid.
too.
I both love and don't love Cid at the same time. He's a great character.
Yeah,
and awful character.
But yeah, I ended up going with him, and that ended up really working out for me, because when I went to the final dungeon, I don't know if you. Oh, of course you know. But those little fucking gremlin guys with the stars above their heads. And because I used Aerith a lot in the beginning, because I pretty much the entire time had Cloud, obviously, and Tifa. Because Tifa's limit break is just ridiculous. And she's just in general a good character.
I love Tifa.
And you really don't have a choice but to use Cloud.
She's my favorite character in the game, honestly. She's the team mom. She's holding everything together.
Exactly. It ended up working out for me, because since I had used Aerith so much in the beginning, and I ended up switching it to Cid after jumping around a little bit, by the time I got there, I had leveled Cloud and Tifa so much from playing them so much that when I face against those little gremlins with the stars above their heads, I don't remember what they're called, but it has this move where its damage that it does to you is based on how many enemies you've killed. And because I've been using Cloud and Tifa from the very beginning, it was a one-hit kill for both of them. And on top of that, he had this stab move, which was, in general, a one-hit kill.
Yeah,
So no matter what he used against either Cloud or Tifa, it was a one-hit kill.
he also has one of his best weapon is also has like the highest materia growth rate in the entire game.
Yeah.
Which makes him great for training.
One of the things that I used him for was leveling up materia. But that ended up working out for me ultimately because I hadn't used it that much. So it was like, it would take maybe 3 or 4 hits to kill him with that. So he was pretty much the one, Phoenix down, like, Phoenix down, and I would just Phoenix down them to bring them back. I wouldn't even bother healing them. I would just bring them back. Regardless, it would be a one-hit kill. So he ended up being a lifesaver for that. I would not have been able to get through that dungeon if I had like a team that I had stuck with from the whole game.
Yeah.
It would not have. If Aerith didn't die, and I ended up going into that with that team, I would have been fucked.
It's also
there would have been no way around it.
It's also really interesting playing like an RPG where like the main character isn't a teenager for once.
Yeah.
Because Cloud's 21. Like he's like a
yeah, they're all like older except for Yuffie.
Yuffie's the youngest. Tifa's 20.
Which, for the record, I didn't get Yuffie or Vincent until way too late for it to matter.
You didn't know about the.
I knew they existed. I just didn't go out of my way for them.
You didn't know that all you have to do to get Yuffie is just grind around in that forest for a little bit.
Well, you also have to have very specific dialogue answers. But
I mean, nowadays it's just a guy.
Exactly. That's what I ended up doing ultimately. I just did it just to do it. But
you need a guide to figure out Vincent. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
And the worst part about Vincent is like he's not even particularly useful, unfortunately.
Really?
His limit breaks just aren't good.
That's a bummer.
They suck, honestly.
That's a bummer because I was honestly thinking about using him on my next run through whenever I get around to it.
He's cool, but his limit breaks are so lame. That's the problem.
Because he reminds me of Alucard.
Yeah, vampire. Children.
He's got the red coat. He uses guns. I mean,
so fun fact in Crisis Core,
he's very vampirish.
In Crisis Core, there's actually a point where you're in the Shinra mansion basement, and you can find his coffin, and they make a comment that there's somebody just chilling in there.
Interesting.
Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
Vincent was okay. I mean, Vincent was the most popular character, but he also appealed to that edgy teen demographic, which was big at the time.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then the other big popular character was Zack, and I guess we should get into the big plot twist reveal.
Yeah.
Of Cloud, the entire game has had his like memories kind of overly supplanted with Zack's memories to the point where he kind of is like an amalgamation of both Cloud and Zack for the first half of the game.
Which was honestly really confusing for me because, and this is kind of like a side thing, but Death Battle, the online YouTube like web series thing.
Formerly Screw Attack.
Yeah, formerly Screw Attack. One of the first ones that they did was Link versus Cloud. And when I watched this, it kind of gave backstory on Cloud. And I watched this years ago. So the way that they portrayed it in Death Battle was they made it seem like Cloud actually had all of Zack's memories and experiences. As if he was like, had absorbed his being or whatever. You know what I mean? It's
later revealed,
a similar idea in Baccano. But
it's later revealed that basically he was suffering from like severe Mako poisoning, which is the planet's like life energy.
Yeah.
And it was causing him to be kind of like in a vegetative like state.
Yeah, which was odd.
Well, he was basically with Zack during Zack's final days, and when Zack was killed, when Cloud finally came to, Zack essentially in his dying breath gives him the Buster Sword and tells him, "Go on and be my living legacy. Carry on my journey." And then Cloud, as he's becoming cognizant, I guess is the word, again, of like who he is, kind of his memories get supplanted with Zack's.
Yeah.
To the point where he thinks
he is Zack.
He thinks he had Zack.
Because he was never a member of Soldier in the beginning. No, because we should preface that with that.
Because it's revealed that Cloud's backstory is he went to join Soldier to impress Tifa, who he had a crush on, but Tifa didn't really. He was kind of like the awkward kid in the village, who like and Tifa was the popular girl.
Yeah, he didn't really have many friends or anything.
And
I think he had like one real conversation with Tifa when they were kids,
which was the water scene, the water tower scene, which was the only thing that's technically true that happened with that. But in reality, that was just Cloud calling her out of the blue because they really never interacted. Yeah. And he basically, his whole goal was go to Shinra, become a soldier to impress her. Right. And he never did. He was a grunt. It's later revealed that we get back to the flashback scene where it's instead of Cloud, it's actually Zack. Yeah. and Cloud's just one of the grunts. He's actually the grunt that keeps Tifa from going into the reactor.
Which I thought was kind of funny.
Which is a funny little Easter egg.
Which is, I know I keep doubling back to this, but what they did with Mission of Bridge with that was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because they called him Rodriguez the whole time. And it was like this whole thing where when they were telling the original backstory with Cloud and Zack, no, not even Zack, with Cloud and Sephiroth, when he was talking to everybody and telling them the whole backstory, in Mission of Bridge, he Rodriguez would say something and Cloud would keep shitting on Rodriguez the whole time.
Yeah.
And then later it was revealed that Cloud was Rodriguez.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because in Crisis Core it's revealed that the whole reason how Cloud and Zack met is they were both on a mission. Cloud was just one of the grunts, and they were they started bonding over. They were both being from the boonies, basically.
Yeah.
Because Cloud was from Nibelheim and Zack was from a town called Gungaga.
Yeah, he was from that super sad town.
Yeah.
That was all about all of our kids are dead.
Foreshadowing the town, basically.
Yeah.
Because you actually do run into that town, and that's where you
meet his parents.
You meet his parents, and it's kind of like, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, that's odd.
It makes sense later on when you find the reveal, because the reveal where Cloud finally comes to his senses is one of the goofiest scenes in the entire game. So Cloud...
But he's in the live stream? Yeah.
So at one point you finally find the real Sephiroth, and Cloud kind of has this weird mental breakdown where he thinks he's a clone of Sephiroth, because there's all these people who have... It's poorly translated because they use clone really weirdly. Mm-hmm. It's just people who have Genova cells in them, and they're all going to this big reunion.
Right.
And Cloud kind of has this weird mental breakdown, and he ends up giving Sephiroth the black materia, which they had been trying to keep from Sephiroth because it's going to send meteor towards the planet. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, we never talked about the famous scene with the black materia in the temple, where Kate Sith does or Kishi does the heroic sacrifice,
and then he just pops right back out afterwards. Hey, I'm Kate Sith too.
Yep.
I'm just gonna call him Kate Sith,
yep.
so you just have to deal with that.
Yeah, and then there's also there's also the scene where Cloud beats the shit out of Aerith for no reason, which is what? Cloud has one of his first Cloud has a lot of mental breakdowns early in the game.
Yeah, he's a broken boy.
But what happens is he has his breakdown and gives Sephiroth the black materia, and then proceeds to fall into the life stream. And then you later go to this one town later on, because after Cloud's gone, Tifa becomes the party leader. Mm-hmm. And then you go to this one town and you find Cloud, and he's just kind of out of it, he's just losing his brain.
He's completely brain dead.
He's basically just in a wheelchair, nodding around, unresponsive to anything. So Tifa then decides, okay, I'm gonna stay with this, and then you get to do 2 missions with Sid as the leader.
Yeah. And
Sid has the goofiest running animation in the game.
Which one was that?
Did you? Oh, you might not have paid attention. I noticed it. He runs with his legs really far out his back, so he's got this weird slouchy run going on.
Jeez. Yeah, well, there's a lot of little details like that I'll notice while I'm playing, but I'll forget about later on,
Because the whole thing that they're doing during this point is they're trying to find the giant materia because they need to use it for...
to try to destroy meteor.
Yes.
Yeah.
But, well, they need it for Cosmo Canyon because Cosmo Canyon's going to be able to, show them, what they need to do to defeat meteor. Mm-hmm. But, so you go through this whole side quest, and two of the giant materia you unlock during the point where Sid's the leader. Mm-hmm. And they're 2 of the most productive points in the game, which is hilarious.
Yeah, I can see that.
But eventually during this point, the town where Cloud is just straight up has a freaking earthquake, and the ground opens up, and then Cloud and Tifa, in one of the goofiest cutscenes in the game, Tifa running out of the town with Cloud in the wheelchair.
And then Weapon shows up, which we didn't even touch on.
The weapons. Because they come during the point where Sephiroth gets the black materia, because they come out of the planet to protect the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the doofiest scene is Tifa running out of the building with Cloud in the wheelchair. Cloud just has this dead-eye stare.
So does that make us the bad guys? If Weapon is literally just supposed to be the planet's way of trying to protect itself?
In a sense, you have to defeat some of them to begin with, regardless.
Yeah, well, yeah, the one that's about to attack Midgar, you have to fight, but...
For reasons, but you don't have to fight the other one.
Emerald fucked me up.
Yeah, Emerald.
I fought it a couple of times. Even after I got Knights of the Round, it just fucked my shit. I was just, you know what? I'm just gonna try to fight Sephiroth.
Yeah. But yeah, anyways, so.
Which Knights of the Round fucking sold that for me.
Knights of the Round is the
Knights of the Round
greatest summon ever, and it's ridiculous.
It did outrageous damage.
Oh, you wanna? There's a materia that causes multicast on certain things. You can set Knights of the Round to, and you can literally multicast Knights of the Round 20 times.
I had it for a magic counter,
Mm.
which was key.
Yeah, but you can do that with Knights of the Round and just go make a sandwich
Yeah.
while it's going on.
Yeah, pretty much, because it goes on for like 5 minutes.
It does.
It's outrageous.
But I guess getting back to that, so Cloud and Tifa fall into the live stream, and then literally you have this entire moment that gives Cloud's backstory and reveals everything. You basically rebuild his memories,
Yeah.
and then you get the actual Cloud, and he is literally a nice dude. Like, he's just a nice guy,
Yeah.
and it's summed up by his famous quote: "Let's mosey."
Yeah, let's mosey.
Let's mosey. And I guess any final thoughts you want to give?
It's definitely recommended, especially to anyone who doesn't mind a turn-based game.
Oh yeah, the battle system's amazing. The active time battle
Yeah,
system.
the battle system is fun. Because I know there's a lot of people who don't really care for turn-based games, my wife included. That's probably the only reason why I haven't really pushed it on her.
It's an acquired taste.
I'm going to try to get her to play the remake because that's more action RPG-ish. And she might enjoy that version because the story itself is just really engaging. Mm-hmm. And I imagine they put more of an effort in the remake. But
I will admit some of the characters aren't super well developed. Like, Aerith is a very flat character.
in a lot of ways, yes. But, I don't know, I found myself caring what happens a lot with that.
Aerith's weird. Like, she comes off as, like, the pure and innocent one from, like, first glance. But she's actually the sass master the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
And Tifa...
She's totally sassing Tifa the whole time.
And Tifa's, like...
Because she has a thing for Cloud.
Yeah, and Tifa's the more, like, innocent kind of, like, normal one, I guess you could say.
I guess you could say that.
Well, because her whole personality is she's literally the team mom. Like, she's just there.
Yeah.
She's like the whole everyone, like, let's band together. We need to, like, be a family. She's just the one that... She's literally the mom.
Yeah.
Of the group.
Dolphin blow.
I love that. Her freaking limit break is insane.
It's ridiculous,
Especially if you
dude.
get,
That's like the biggest reason I kept her around was when I realized how her
Well, because it's the
her
only
limit break worked.
It's the only one that stacks.
Yeah.
But if you get like all the Yaz in a row, it's ridiculous.
It was crazy. It was so good. So good.
It's
honestly, her limit break in Knights of the Round was like the biggest thing that made me able to beat the game when I did. If I didn't have either of those, it would have been a serious grind fest before I actually went and fought the final battle, without a doubt.
There's a lot of great moments too throughout the game,
like Barrett's backstory.
His backstory is really sad. Sid's whole backstory is really sad too. He just wanted to go to space, damn it.
Yeah, that's all he wanted.
And I love how it's an entire town. The entire town is called Rocket Town because of the failed space program.
Yeah.
I did like that the villains were really unlikable too, because I like unlikable villains.
Yeah, for sure.
I like a sympathetic villain occasionally, but I prefer when my villains are villains.
Yeah, and for the most part.
None of
that's one of the reasons why, I know, totally different topic, but that's one of the reasons why I get a little annoyed with the villains in shows like Naruto.
Yeah.
Because they really go way fucking hard in trying to make every single villain relatable and understandable.
Oh yeah.
Like they're all just misunderstood and had bad childhoods.
Friends.
We're all orphans. Friends. All of our parents are dead, or they treated us badly. Like, you know.
Yeah. But I love that the villains are villains. What did you think of the bitch slap battle on top of the Junin cannon?
I found it hilarious.
That is one of the goofiest scenes in the entire game.
I found it hilarious not because of what they were doing, but because, like, Tifa's whole thing is punching. So why the fuck are you slapping? Like, why did you not just punch her in the face and knock her in the next week?
Scarlet slapped her first, so that started the battle.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
That's also,
she could have just punched her in the nose and been done with it.
That's also right after the scene where you have to escape the gas chamber.
Which, honestly, even if you know exactly what you're doing, the amount of time she was in there, she should have been dead.
Yeah. That whole scene is...
For sure.
That whole scene's ridiculous. Most of the Junin segments are really goofy, too, because you also get the rescue the drowning girl from the dolphin, like the dolphin thing.
Yeah,
and then the
weird.
Sea monster comes out of nowhere. Oop, boss fight.
Yep, alright. Well, here we go.
Then you deliberately fuck up the parade.
I did not deliberately fuck that up. I just was bad at it.
Yeah, I gave up on trying to get it right, so I just always give him a grenade.
I was just bad at it. I'm you know what? I could take it. As long as I can get through it and get to the next part of the game.
You also get the segment on the boat where you go from one side of the map to the other.
How about Barrett in the sailor suit?
Barrett in the... Actually, no, Red 13 in the sailor suit, walking on two legs.
Oh, that's right. Oh, my God.
Yuffie being seasick in the corner.
I didn't have Yuffie at that point.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, I forget. Yuffie hit the whole... Yuffie's thing is she gets travel sick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when you get the high wind later on, you can find Yuffie in the Chocobo 10 just laying there. No, she's actually up on the deck, just passed out because she's sea flight airsick.
Jeez. Fuck Chocobo breeding.
You actually did that too.
Yeah, I did.
See, there's two methods that you can either do the Chocobo breeding, or you can defeat Ruby and Emerald Weapon to just be given a golden Chocobo.
Yeah, well, I tried beating Emerald Weapon after I got Knights of the Round, which is the whole reason I did the Chocobo breeding in the first place, is because you need to
get Knights of
you
the
need
Round.
to either do that or you need to beat the weapons.
Because the only way you can get to where Knights of the Round is with a golden Chocobo. Because a golden Chocobo can literally go anywhere on the map.
And I used Knights of the Round to try and beat Emerald Weapon, and that was not working out.
It's not an easy fight. Also, I love how it first appears, where it's literally just walking around
underwater,
and
yeah,
you crash into it in the sub and be like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, that was interesting.
Well, when I first encountered it, I was like, "What's that?" And I ran into it. And it's like boss fight. Oh no!
Oh, this is really strong.
I don't have the underwater materia. Oh no!
Nah, that was not.
Then
good.
I drowned to death.
I didn't even know there was an underwater materia.
But
maybe that's why I kept dying.
Yeah, because the time limit.
But
yeah, it's I guess.
It's definitely a journey.
Oh, yeah.
Honestly, if anyone hasn't played it yet or has heard about it, definitely give it a shot.
Mm.
It's not going to be groundbreaking cutscenes or graphics. So if you want to play it, don't play it for that. Play it because you want to play a good story with some decent turn-based combat and actually a decent amount of fairly well-made minigames.
And some great characters.
For sure.
Yeah, and
so I think at an hour and 10 minutes on this discussion, I think that's about good.
Definitely worth playing, although it is not the greatest game of all time, like some will say.
No, like I said, it's not even in my top, but it was enjoyable enough for me to recommend it for sure.
Definitely.
So I think that's good for now.